Welcome back, part 2. Okay, last graphing one, cosecant. So when we're graphing cosecant, we start off with sine, because those are the reciprocals. So thinking about our unit circle again, 0 max, 0 min, 0. 0 max, 0 min, 0. Now we are going to be moving this pi over 4 to the right. That's one block. Move it to the right, 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 move it to the right. Now when I move left and right, my asymptotes are also going to move. So I have asymptotes on the new zeros. And I'm going to connect my maximums to become my minimums, and my minimums to become my maximums. So again, this light blue part is the only part that's actually my answer. Okay, and on to the next part. So it says find the amplitude and the period for each function. So if I look at amplitude on sine, this is how high and how low I'm reaching from that midline, sorry. Usually on the parent function, I go up to 1 and I go down to -1 for sine. Well, this one is going up to 1 and down to -5. So we have to find that sweet spot where we're reaching from. We have to find that midline, because obviously this graph moved down. So the middle of my function is actually right here at -2. So how much should I go up from -2, and how much should I go down from -2 to get to 1 and -5? That would be 3. To find my period, I'm going to be looking at where do I start and where do I stop to get those 5 critical points in. The 0 max, 0 min, 0. So if I think about this as a sine curve, 0 would be here, max would be here, 0 would be here, min would be here, back to 0. From here to here is 2 pi. This graph must have been shifted left and right then. Okay, if we look at 15, again, we're going up and down from that midline. So the middle of my function's right here at 2, and it looks like I'm reaching up to 3 and down to up to 3 and down to 1. So if I'm at 2, and I'm going up to 3 and down to 1, then my amplitude must just be 1. This graph must have shifted up 2 units. Now I can think of this as sine, or I can think of this as cosine, because they're just transformations of one another. So if I think of it as sine, I'm starting here at 0, I go to my max, I go to 0, I go to my min, I'm back to 0, look at where I stopped, 2 pi again, that's my period. Now to do 14, I actually have to look at the sine or cosine curve that goes with this. So I'm going to connect my maxes and my mins together and whoop. And I want to see, where do I start? Where do I stop? So I'm thinking about this one as more of a cosine because it goes max back to its max. And that looks like it's happening in 2 pi. That's my period. Now for my amplitude, again, I'm drawing in that midline. It's at -2. I'm just going up to 1 and down to 3. So again, that amp is a 1. It's a little bit harder to see in tangent because, let me make this actually a little bit bigger and that might help. So this point of concavity is where our zeros used to be. So if I think about tangent, it has that little bend in it called the point of concavity, where we change from being concave down to concave up. So my point of concavity can shift down and up and left and right and everything, but I see that little bend right here. My asymptotes are going to be squeezed right in here between, right there. And halfway between asymptotes and the, well, that's crooked. Asymptotes and the 0 are those ones and those negative ones. So if I go halfway between, I see them right here, and right there, and right there, and halfway, and halfway, and halfway. So it looks like that's halfway vertically as well as halfway horizontally. So I'm only moving up one and down one from that point of concavity. So I can say that that's amp would be just a 1. It would just be our tangent, definitely scooted down a little bit. So this would probably be tangent of theta minus 2 since we moved down. And I see my asymptotes are at the normal spots for tangent, at negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2, then pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2. So I do see that that period is just a regular pi on this one. Okay, next we're going to find the range, and we are going to look at our graphs, and we're just going to do a quick little sketch here. So for 4 sine, I know that I go up to 4, down to negative, oh, that's cosine. Up to 4, down to negative 4. Now this 2 right here changes my period to pi, but that really doesn't matter for range, because range means how high and how low does my graph go. So right now I'm at 4 and negative 4, and if I go ahead and move this down 2, I'm going to max out at 2 and have a minimum at negative 6 from moving down 2 and down 2. So in interval notation, how I write my range is from negative 6 to 2, least to greatest. Now tangent is kind of a fun one to look at range because it's all row numbers, or negative infinity to positive infinity. So let's see why. When I look at tangent, of course, it goes through the origin, and this one's going to have that amplitude, that stretch of 2, and then I'm going to just shift it down 1. I still have arrows pointing straight up and straight down. So my range is actually all row numbers on this one. Okay, next I have the negative 2 cosine of theta plus 5. And if I think about cosine, max 0, min 0, max, negative cosine, min 0, max 0, min. Still going that amplitude from negative 2 to positive 2. So if I take that baby blue one and I shift it up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm now up at 3. I'm reaching up, reaching down. I'm taking this maximum where I was at 2 and going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going from 2 to 5 is now at 7. So there's my range, 3 to 7. The last 2 questions, why are they so small? The last 2 questions are asking me about phase shift and period. For kind of the trickier ones is what I put on here. So everything you can just ignore. Everything out here, that's not phase shift. Right inside of here is going to give us our phase shift, our left to our right. So looking at this, I see a 2 is my B. So I'm looking at this formula again. And my phase shift is C over B. So because I shrink my graph down by 2, I have to shrink my movement down by 2. So this is going to be pi over 2, didn't mean to make a range, or all row numbers are, to the right. It's negative, it's opposite, so it's to the right. So I'm shrinking my graph down, so I move it only half as much. And last, they're asking about the period. Remember, tangent and cotangent have a period of just pi. So when I see this b here, that's a 2. Again, ignore, 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 ignore. None of that has anything to do with period. So pi divided by 2 would be my period there. That's it.